Hello, Singaporeans and my viewers. In the 1960s and 70s, the PAP saw healthcare as universal and accessible, with only a token payment necessary, usually $1. But from the early 1980s, its principles significantly incorporated cost effectiveness, which transformed healthcare into a right. One simple test is as follows. For something to be regarded as a right, then there must be universal access. There have been expansions of healthcare coverage since the 1984 reform, as seen in the reduction of exclusions and the increased recognition of the disabled. But access to support remains difficult, even for those with legitimate health needs. For instance, the way in which means testing is employed almost always takes the person with disabilities applying for funding over the threshold, thus excluding them from receiving support. Do you agree? We stress that healthcare is not necessarily an absolute right nor privilege. Some aspects may be rights and other aspects privileges, with no worldwide consensus in place. But how are these determined? To answer this question, we need to ask a few more first. Should all individuals, regardless of their background, social economy, and citizenship status, have the same access to healthcare? Why or why not? Is healthcare comparable to other essential services, example the police, fire department, emergency services, etc., which are often considered rights? If so, what determines whether a service is essential or not? Should healthcare be funded through taxes, private insurance, or a combination of both? What are the economic implications of considering healthcare as a right versus a privilege? Which is fairer? Recognizing the equality of all individuals and how there is no fair way to discriminate between them, so everyone pays exactly the same for healthcare, or recognizing that everyone is different and has different means, which means that they will pay based on what they can afford. If so, what is a fair way of determining how much people should pay? In terms of health outcomes and patient satisfaction, how do countries with universal healthcare systems compare with those that predominantly offer private healthcare systems? What lessons can Singapore learn from other countries' healthcare systems? How can a society ensure equitable access to healthcare for marginalized or underserved groups in the society? Answering these questions have significant implications for how Singaporeans formulate policy. Any resulting changes once made cannot be easily undone. Once public perception of healthcare shifts from a commodity or privilege to a fundamental human right, the expectations of and demands on the healthcare system will shift accordingly. Now, every individual will have guaranteed access to necessary medical services without suffering financial hardships. Ideally, this approach can reduce health disparities, since marginalized and economically disadvantaged groups will now have improved access to healthcare services. However, ensuring high standard of care might become challenging if resources are spread thin. There are also important political considerations, including potential increased satisfaction with the government performance, so long as standards are maintained. Universal healthcare can foster a sense of community and solidarity among citizens. Since everyone shares in both the benefits and the responsibilities of maintaining the system, that is a myth that needs dispelling. That universal healthcare will increase public spending on health. Yes, many people will say that, especially PAP diehard supporters and IBs will say universal healthcare will increase public spending on health, which then impacts taxation and national spending priorities. But this does not need to be the case. Gagging from the Swedish experience, 90 healthcare costs can be lowered through the better use of resources and by empowering patients and primary care doctors. Also, some have argued that universal healthcare can drive improvements in service quality through increased funding and accountability. Ultimately, healthcare is a deeply political decision, and the resources will always be limited and insufficient. How then should we use resources to take care of Singaporeans? It is up to Singaporeans to decide what kind of healthcare system they want to have, and a healthcare system that they can dream of to have better than this existing healthcare system. Let me say this clearly. Healthcare has always been a top concern for Singaporeans, especially with an aging population and rising mental health issues. Yet, under the PAP, these concerns are repeatedly brushed aside. The PAP government like to boast about efficiency and cost effectiveness. But what does that mean for ordinary Singaporeans? It means we pay more out of pocket while services are understaffed, appointments delayed, long waiting time, and seniors are left to fend for themselves. Mental health care is a prime example. It's very expensive, hard to access even today, and under-resourced. Yet, nothing changes at the moment. Do you think it's true? What do you think? Let's not forget the PAP's track record. SARS, the hepatitis C outbreak in 2015, which they kept quiet about until after the election. So please check the facts. And the COVID dormitory disaster. Each time their so-called world-class system was caught unprepared. Now, we are told Healthier SG is a big reform, but in reality, it's just more of the same, pushing the burden of the responsibility onto the citizens, onto Singaporeans, while the government avoids universal health care and hides behind the 3M system of MediSave, MediShield, and MediFund, etc. In simply terms, you pay first and the state helps last. What do you think? Other countries, and a lot of them, spend more to protect their own people, which is a true fact. However, in Singapore, one of the richest nations in the world, spends the least on healthcare as a percentage of GDP, and this is a fact. So please go and check on it. But mix its own people, Singaporeans, pay the most out of the pocket. That's not world-class healthcare. That's world-class hypocrisy. The truth is clear. Healthier SG is not reform. It's repackaging. The PAP is more interested in saving money than saving lives. What do you think? And until Singaporeans demand real change, we will keep paying more for less, while PAP ministers congratulate themselves on efficiency. Lastly, I would love to hear on all I had said in here. I am Puah. Thank you.